Hi everyone, welcome back to Small Engine Tutorial. Thanks for dropping by our channel, and today's video is we have this Stihl FS45 trimmer, and I found this one on the roadside and it's been thrown away, maybe because it's not working, and we'll take a good look at it and see what's the problem with it, and hopefully we can fix it. And let's get started. The first thing I'm going to do is to check if the engine is not worn out by pulling the starter cord, and I will see how much the engine will fight back, which is still pretty good. And the other way of checking is to use the compression tester, and we'll just remove the spark plug. So a good compression will range from 90 to 150 psi, and we'll see what this one's reading. Wow, it's still pretty good, and we get 150 psi, so the engine is still in very good shape, and very good to have this sort of condition at this age. So the next thing to check if the engine is still produces spark. So we have the spark plug. Let's place the spark plug into the spark plug boot, and just connect the middle part of the spark plug into the chassis of the engine, and we observe for spark. So definitely there's a spark, which is very good, and I have to make sure that I have to ground the spark plug into the chassis, and also wear protective gloves like neutral rubber in order to prevent any electric shock. Also, you can test the engine if the engine runs by adding a small amount of fuel or a carburetor cleaner directly into the spark plug hole or combustion chamber, but this method sometimes won't work because it floods the spark plug, and also it doesn't have the proper fuel and air mix, which normally comes from the carburetor into the crankcase then into the combustion engine. So that doesn't mean that you don't have a working engine, but for now I will skip that method and I'll focus on the carburetor and the exhaust spark arrestor. Now let's have a look at the spark arrestor if it's not blocked. I'm using the M15 deep socket. Okay, so we have the spark arrestor here, and somehow doesn't have the screen. So possibly the previous owner took the screen out, maybe because it's fully blocked. But if you have the spark arrestor, it's better to keep it or clean it with propane torch or blowtorch, or just simply use a carburetor cleaner and a wire brush. The engine will still runs without the spark arrestor, but it's still very important to have the spark arrestor because this one traps the hot particles from the exhaust, which can cause fire. So for now, I'll put this one back, and I will replace this one when I have spare. But now we have to check on the carburetor. Next is I want to remove the carburetor and inspect it for any problem. Before we remove the carburetor, it's best practice to clean the carburetor and its outside thoroughly before dismantling the carburetor. Using the M8 socket, just remove the 2 screws of the carburetor 2 mounting bolts. Now we can remove the filter base assembly, remove the fuel hose. Now remove the throttle cable. Now we can remove the carburetor. The first thing I'm going to check is the fuel pump side. So after removing the plate, you can see the inlet screen here, and make sure it's not blocked with debris and dirt. As we can see, it's very clean, but still we need to clean this one and remove the inlet screen. So looking at the fuel pump diaphragm, you can still reuse the fuel pump diaphragm provided that the 2 check valve flaps are flat and parallel to the diaphragm, and it's not bent or away from the surface. But at this, as you can see, 2 of the check valve flaps are bent downwards, So we need to replace the diaphragm. Next is we need to have a look at the metering side. So this is the primer plate, this is the primer bulb, this is the primer base assembly, and looking on the metering diaphragm, let's check if it's not hardened and deformed. As you can see, the, the form of the diaphragm is a little bit hardened, and also the cone shape on it, it's slightly deformed. So it's like a speaker that the cone shape around the diaphragm is still good. The diaphragm could vibrate like a speaker. So in this case, we need to replace the metering diaphragm as well. So you can see the metering diaphragm, but if it's still soft, you can still reuse the metering diaphragm. Now the metering gasket, if you try to remove this metering gasket, it's likely that you damage the metering gasket because it's got stuck into the carburetor body. So, and also besides from that, and reusing the old metering gasket, it's not a good idea. It's better to replace this one with the new one. Why? Because it's already compressed. There's no provision to compress the gasket. So once it's fully compressed, it's likely that the air could leak somewhere around the edge of the primer base. And no matter how hard you tighten the screws, and you're likely to damage the primer base by tightening too much just to seal any air leaks around the primer base. So it's best to replace the gasket as well if you have access to a new rebuild kit. Now we have to remove this gasket, and also the metering pin and the metering lever, and also the bulb. So to remove the metering assembly, just undo the screw that holds the metering pin. You have to be careful because there's a spring underneath, and slowly remove the metering assembly, and you have this spring here. And you also have the metering needle. This model of carburetor always comes with a short type of metering needle. One thing you can also check by adding a small amount of fluid into the inlet screen and wait until the fuel will disappear through it. So this is to check whether that inlet valve hole is not blocked. But for me, you still need to remove the inlet screen and clean those inlet valve. Now we could remove the metering gasket as well. So at this time, it's really impossible not to damage the metering gasket, and we have a little bit left of the part of the gasket into the carburetor body. So we just need to clean those, and also the manifold air cleaner gasket as well. We need to remove this and we'll replace with the new one. Now we can clean the carburetor. So first thing is we need to clean the carburetor body. Now we need to remove these two mixture screws. One of the mixture screws is locked with this plastic retainer here, and we need to remove this plastic. Now we need to rotate the screw clockwise and count how many turns. For the high, 1, just 1.5, and also this one clockwise, 1, 2, 2.25. So you have to remember that. So 2.25 for the low and 1.5 for the high. So now we can fully remove the the 2 screws. So now we can clean this carburetor with a carburetor cleaner. So clean all the holes, make sure that it doesn't go through your eye, and you have to be careful. So also the main jet. So check in the check valve here. This is the main jet check valve. So you should see don't blow compressor directly to the check valve, especially that one there or this one here, just to prevent damaging the disc inside the check valve. Next part is we need to clean this part here. We still need to, so because this one is getting too hard, getting hardened, so it's also we need to replace this one as well. By taking this one off, it's impossible not to damage the fuel pump gasket as well. So we can remove this one carefully just to minimize cleaning. So you still have some of the remnants of the gasket and the base assembly, so we can clean that one. So the primer base assembly. So let's check if the primer base assembly is still working fine. So when you apply carburetor cleaner directly to the intake of this nozzle here, it should block the carburetor cleaner from going through the check valve. So which is good. So when you apply the carburetor cleaner from this side here, it should allow the carburetor cleaner from going through that nozzle. Okay. So also when you apply carburetor cleaner on this side here, it should block the carburetor cleaner from going through this hole here. Okay, which is good. And when you apply from the other side, you should see the carburetor cleaner going through that hole. Okay, so it's very good. Now we're going to clean the rest of the parts. So except the spring, valve, and the mesh. Let's clean the plate. Finally, we need to clean the remaining parts, which is the spring. We have to be careful not to lose the spring. So the last part is the needle valve. So here we have the rebuild kit. So the rebuild kit we're going to use GND56, or you can use the complete rebuild kit RB100. So now we're going to install these mixture screws. So we have to tighten this one all the way, and we have to rotate this one 2 1/4 turns. It's 1, 2, 2 1/4. So the other one as well, we have to tighten this one all the way in and rotate this one 1 1/2 turns. 1 1/2. First is we have this needle bulb here. We just place the metering pin into the metering lever. We just place a spring. So we're going to lower the metering lever to the spring, and we'll try to catch the needle bulb as well. And this one has to push this one lightly, so it should go. So that's in. Now we can tighten the screw. Using a Zama metering gauge, we need to check the height of the lever. If you don't have the gauge, just use any flat ruler and place the one on the top. Make sure that the tip of the metering lever just touches the ruler, which is not. So we have to wedge this one a little bit. And check it again. Just a little bit. Okay, just about it. Now we need to place the mesh. Just slightly push the mesh with any size of drill bit, but if you're familiar with this one, just slightly push with any, or even this one, just around it. So now we have a new rebuild kit. So this is the old kit that we have. So this is the new one. So that's the fuel pump diaphragm. That's the metering gasket. That's with a hole in it. That's the fuel pump gasket. And this is the metering diaphragm. So to install the fuel pump diaphragm, so just place the fuel pump gasket into the guide post, or into the plate, then the fuel pump diaphragm. So now we have to install this one like that. Make sure it won't move. Then we have the screws. Okay, now we install the metering side. First is you need to place the metering gasket first before the metering diaphragm. So pay attention with the orientation of the gasket and diaphragm. So now you have to place the primer base. Then we have a new primer bulb, primer retaining plate, make sure this lines up with the so possibly best to work on this side first. Make sure that you have 1 or 2 screws that lines up with the holes. So the remaining screws, now we can tighten. So when you tighten the screws, you just tie from here across and then aside, then across. Okay, so that's it. So this one, just leave this one the last when after you get the engine running, and you set this one to just right there, so you have allowance to either to rotate clockwise or counterclockwise. So now we have to install this one into the engine. So before we install the carburetor, let's check the fuel line first. Condition of the fuel line, if the fuel filter is still in good shape. So we still have a very good fuel system or fuel line. So just put this one back. To install a fuel filter, just place this one inside. Just like that. Okay. So we have this old manifold gasket. We can still reuse this one. So we just install the new rebuilt carburetor. So just install the fuel line. This part here, which is the shorter line, which is connected to the fuel filter inside, connected to the intake, and the long one, which is the return line, connected to the return nozzle. Now we're going to install the throttle. So we have to rotate this part here, so to find where the largest hole or the side, which is the other side. So we have to rotate this one towards the bottom. So we just push this one. So we get that in place. Now we need to install a new air cleaner gasket, then the filter base assembly, so we have a new air filter. So this is an old one. We can still reuse the old one or just replace with the new one. Now we can fill with the petrol. Okay, let's say if you can start engine, let's prime this one. So you can see it's priming. So you put on a choke, switch in on position, press the lever, Okay, now we put a full choke, full on, run position. Thanks for watching our video repair tutorial for today. It's a very long day, and I hope you find this information on this repair tutorial useful. Please do subscribe and leave a comment if you have any questions. And I hope you can, through this, you can also fix your own FS45 trimmer. And please do subscribe, please share, and I'll see you next time. Bye for now.